Before we begin, let me ask you something quietly. Have you ever felt like you've been living your life, but not fully inside of it? Like something essential, something quietly important, has been just out of reach, just beyond the edge of your awareness. Not gone, just waiting. This is a story about that feeling and what happens when someone finally decides to follow it. There was a time in a woman's life when everything looked correct. Not perfect, not extraordinary, but acceptable. She had routines, familiar places, familiar conversations, familiar versions of herself she wore, depending on who she was with. And from the outside, it all made sense. But inside, there was something quieter, not loud enough to disrupt her life, not painful enough to demand immediate change, just persistent. A feeling like a question that had never been fully asked. It showed up in small moments, when she would pause just a little too long before answering a simple question. When laughter came but didn't quite reach all the way through to her. When she laid awake at night, not unhappy, but not fully settled either. And sometimes, in the quietest moments, she would feel it most clearly. That sense that she was standing somewhere in her life that wasn't quite the place she had meant to be. She didn't know what that meant. So she did what most people do. She continued. She filled her time. She adjusted her expectations. She told herself that maybe this was just how life felt. But the feeling didn't leave because it wasn't trying to be ignored. It was trying to be followed. One evening, without planning to, she found herself sitting alone. No distractions, no noise, no expectations, just stillness. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't reach for anything to fill it. She stayed. And in that space, something subtle began to shift. At first, it felt like restlessness, a slight discomfort, the urge to move, to distract, to escape. But beneath that, something else, something softer, something patient. A thought appeared, not loud, not urgent, just present. What if you were walking in the right direction, but on the wrong path? It didn't make immediate sense, but it stayed, and something inside her recognized it. The next day, nothing dramatic changed. Her life looked the same, but her attention was different. She started noticing things she hadn't before. The way certain conversations drained her, the way certain environments made her feel smaller, or quieter, or less like herself. And the way very small things, unexpected things, made her feel alive. A song she hadn't heard before, a place she had never visited, a thought she hadn't allowed herself to think. And slowly, very slowly, she began to realize something important. She hadn't lost herself. She had simply adapted so well to everything around her that she had stopped noticing what was truly hers. So she began an experiment, not a dramatic one, not a life-altering leap, just small choices. She started asking herself questions, not the usual ones, not the "what should I do?" or "what makes sense?" but something different. What feels true? And at first the answers were unclear, because that voice had been quiet for so long. But she didn't rush it. She listened, even when there was nothing to hear. Days passed, then weeks, and something subtle began to grow. Not confidence, not certainty. Something deeper. Trust. Trust in the idea that there was something inside her that knew, even if it didn't speak loudly, even if it didn't explain itself. And the more she listened, the more she noticed the difference between what she had learned to want and what she actually felt drawn towards. The difference between what she had been told she was and what she felt herself becoming. It wasn't comfortable. Sometimes it meant noticing things she had outgrown. Relationships that no longer fit. Habits that no longer supported her. Paths that no longer felt aligned. And that part was difficult. Because letting go, even when something is no longer right, still feels like loss. But she didn't rush that either. She allowed herself to feel it, to sit with it, to understand it. And in doing so, she discovered something unexpected. Letting go wasn't about losing pieces of herself. It was about making space for parts of her that had been waiting. And slowly her life began to change. Not all at once, not dramatically, but unmistakably. She found herself saying no more often, and yes in ways that felt different, more honest, more aligned. She began spending time differently, choosing environments that felt expansive, people who allowed her to be more of herself, not less. And one day, without planning it, without realizing when it had happened, she noticed something. The quiet feeling that had once followed her was gone. Not because it had disappeared, but because it had changed. It was no longer a question. It had become a knowing. She wasn't searching anymore, not in the same way, because she had found something, not a final answer, not a perfect version of herself, something more important, a relationship with herself. And in that relationship, there was space, room to grow, room to change, room to not have everything figured out, because she understood now, finding yourself isn't about arriving at a fixed point. It's about learning how to stay connected to the part of you that continues to evolve. And once that connection is there, you don't get lost in the same way again. Because even if that path changes, even if it shifts, there is always something inside of you that knows how to return, not to who you were, but to who you are becoming. And maybe, as you sit here now listening to this, there is something inside of you that feels just a little more familiar. Not because you found all the answers, but because something inside you has started listening. And sometimes that's where everything begins. And now, as the story begins to settle, you don't have to do anything at all. There's nothing to figure out, nothing to force, nothing to change all at once. You can simply begin to notice the quiet space that the story has opened inside of you. And as you sit or lie there, just allowing your body to be supported, you might start to become aware of your breathing, not changing it, not controlling it, just noticing the natural rhythm of breathing in and out. And with each breath in, there's a subtle sense of receiving. And with each breath out, a gentle letting go. Nothing dramatic, just small, natural shifts. And you may notice that as you continue listening, your body begins to settle in its own way. Maybe your shoulders soften just slightly. Maybe your jaw loosens without effort. Maybe your hands feel heavier or lighter or simply more still. And whatever you notice is exactly right, because this isn't about doing it correctly. It's about allowing. And as you continue to breathe, you can begin to imagine something, not vividly, not forcibly, just gently, as if a feeling is forming more than an image. Imagine that somewhere within you there is a quiet space, a place that has always been there. Not something you have to create, just something you're beginning to return to. And this space feels calm, not empty, but open, not silent, but peaceful. A place where nothing is demanding your attention. Nothing is pulling at you. Nothing is asking you to be anything other than what you are right now. And as you imagine this space, you might begin to notice that each breath brings you a little closer to it. Not by effort, not by allowing. With every exhale, you can feel yourself drifting just slightly deeper into that quiet inner place. And as you settle there, something begins to happen very naturally. The outside world starts to fade into the background. Sounds become softer, or simply less important. Thoughts, if they appear, can begin to drift like clouds, passing by without needing to be held onto. And you don't have to stop your thoughts. You don't have to control them. You can simply notice that you don't have to follow every single one. And as that happens, there is more space between them, more quiet, more stillness. And in that stillness, you may begin to sense something very subtle, a presence, not outside of you, but within, the same part of you that the story was pointing toward, the part of you that notices, the part of you that knows, the part of you that has been there through every version of your life. And you don't have to understand it. You don't have to define it. You can simply allow yourself to feel it. And as you do, you may notice a gentle sense of grounding, as if you're becoming more anchored, not to the outside world, but to yourself. And that feeling can begin to deepen with each breath. In a moment, I'm going to invite you to allow that feeling to expand. But there's no rush. It can happen slowly, naturally, in your own time. Because the deeper you go, the easier it becomes. And the easier it becomes, the deeper you go. So now, just gently allow your awareness to move inward even more, as if you're stepping just slightly further into that quiet space within you. And as you do, you might begin to notice that there is a sense of safety there. Not because everything is perfect, but because this is a place where you don't have to perform. You don't have to explain. You don't have to be anything for anyone. And in that safety, your body can relax even more. Your breathing can slow just slightly. And your mind can begin to soften. And now, as you rest in this space, you can begin to allow something very important. You can allow yourself to reconnect with the part of you that knows what feels true. Not loudly, not forcefully, but quietly, gently. And you might begin to notice that there are subtle signs already there. A feeling of openness towards certain things. A sense of contraction towards others. A quiet pull that doesn't need to be explained. And for now, you don't have to act on any of it. You don't have to decide anything. You can simply notice that it exists. And the more you notice, the clearer it becomes. Not all at once, but naturally, over time. And as you continue resting here, you may begin to realize something very gently. You are not searching for something outside of you. You are remembering something within you. And that remembering doesn't happen through force. It happens through allowing, through listening, through returning again and again to this quiet place. And every time you return here, even for a moment, that connection grows stronger, more familiar, more accessible, until eventually it becomes something you carry with you. Not just here, but everywhere. And now, as you rest in that awareness, you can allow yourself to go even deeper into relaxation, deeper into stillness, deeper into yourself, knowing that there is nothing you need to rush, nothing you need to solve, nothing you need to become right now. Because in this moment, you are already exactly where you need to be. And that quiet sense of connection, that gentle awareness within you, can continue to grow even after this, in ways you don't have to think about, in ways that unfold naturally over time. So for now, just rest, drift, and allow yourself to remain here for as long as you need. Because this place, this connection, this quiet knowing is always here, waiting, And now you know how to return.
There was a life that looked just right. From the outside it held its shape. Every step was justified. Every role I learned to play. I wore the faces, I knew the lines, spoke the words they needed to hear. But somewhere deep between the breaths was a truth that stayed unclear. Not loud enough to break me down, not strong enough to make me run. Just a whisper in the silence saying, you're not done. There was a quiet calling me, not in fear, but softly like a question in my chest that wouldn't let me rest. And I tried to live around it, tried to shape my world without it, but the truth was always there, waiting in the air. Now I hear it, now I see. The quiet was just leading me to me, to me. Oh, it showed up in the smallest ways, and laughter that didn't stay, in the pauses I couldn't explain, in the nights that drifted away. Not undone, just somewhere I didn't belong. Standing still inside a life that I've been living too long. And one night I stayed with it, didn't run, didn't hide. Felt the discomfort rising, but something stayed inside. The quiet was just leading me to me. What if I was moving right, but not where I belonged? What if I was holding on to something I'd outgrown? So I started small, just a question at a time. Now what should I be? They didn't need to prove. They were patient, they were quiet, but they knew how to move. I let go of what felt tight, even when it hurt to release. Every ending made a space for a deeper kind of peace. Not the kind you chase or find, not the kind they define, but a trust that grew inside, that what's mine will feel like mine. There was a quiet calling me, and now it lives inside me. Not a question anymore, but something I can trust. And I'm not who I was before, and I don't need to rush, because I found something real
So here are the key meanings of the story. Number 1, you were never truly lost, only disconnected. The story gently reframes the idea of being lost. It suggests that what feels like confusion or emptiness is actually a quiet disconnection from your inner voice, not absence, but distance. Number 2, the feeling of something missing is guidance, not a flaw. The subtle, persistent feeling the character experiences is not something to fix or suppress. It is an internal signal, a form of direction, trying to lead you back to yourself. Number 3, adaptation can hide your true self. Over time, the character learned she didn't disappear. She simply adapted to expectations, environments, and rules. This highlights a powerful truth. You can become very good at being who you need to be and slowly forget who you actually are. Number 4, stillness is where clarity begins. The turning point in the story comes not from action, but from pausing, from sitting in silence without distraction. It emphasizes that clarity doesn't come from doing more. It comes from creating space to listen. Number 5, truth feels different than logic. The story introduces a subtle shift from "what should I do?" to "what feels true." This represents intuitive alignment over external validation, a deeper, more internal form of decision-making. Number 6, self-trust is built through listening, not forcing. The character doesn't suddenly find herself. Instead, she rebuilds trust with her inner voice, slowly, patiently, through awareness. This shows that self-discovery is not a moment, it's a relationship. Number 7, growth requires letting go of what no longer fits. As she reconnects, she begins to outgrow parts of herself. This highlights the finding yourself. Often includes releasing identities, habits, and connections that once made sense, but no longer align. Number 8, letting go is not loss. It is space creation. The story reframes endings. What feels like loss is actually the creation of space for more authentic parts of yourself to emerge. Number 9, alignment feels like expansion, not effort. The changes in her life aren't forced or dramatic. They feel natural, lighter, more open. This reflects the idea that when you're aligned, life feels less like pushing and more like following. Number 10, finding yourself is not a destination. The story gently removes the idea of a final version of self. Instead, it shows that identity is always evolving. Finding yourself means staying connected through that evolution. Number 11, the search transforms into a relationship. At the end, she isn't searching anymore, not because she has all the answers, but because she has built a connection with herself, and that connection becomes her compass. And number 12, you always have the ability to return to yourself. This is the core emotional anchor of the story. No matter how far you feel from who you are, there is always a way back, not becoming someone new, but by reconnecting with what has always been there. And before you go, just notice something quietly. Even if a small part of you feels a little more connected, a little more aware, a little more like yourself, then something has already begun. Not because you forced it, but because you allowed it. And that's how real change happens, softly, naturally, from within. So if this space, this feeling, is something you like to return to again, you can simply stay connected. You can subscribe and allow more stories like this to meet you exactly where you are, whenever you need them. And if there's a deeper part of you that's ready to go even further to explore your own story in a way that's personal, intentional, and created just for you, you can reach out. because sometimes the most powerful journey is the one that's designed especially for you. But for now, you don't need to do anything else. Just carry this with you, this quiet knowing that no matter where life takes you, there is always a way back to yourself. And the more you listen, the clearer that path becomes. Until next time, be well.